Sewing, a craft of which has been around for thousands of years, is mainly thought of as a hobby craft women usually perform. However, after conducting some research, I found that men and women throughout history have participated in sewing craft. An interesting bit of information I learned was according to Joan Perkin in the article Sewing Machines, Liberation or Drudgery for Women, men who were tailors often used their wives for small menial tasks in the shop, like making buttonholes and felling seams. I found this particularly interesting because it demonstrated a few things. Firstly, that men throughout history have been employed as tailors, and secondly, that they have used women for the drudgery of tailor work. This clearly shows that women have been taken advantage of in this position, but it also shows that men were traditionally employed in the craft of tailoring clothes. From this, I would gather that men participated fairly frequently in sewing crafts, although there was obviously a divide in labor as to what was acceptable for a man to do and what women can do. For example, I find the most notable difference between men and women lies in the fact that men are employed more professionally as clothes designers, and women are expected to do sewing as a leisurely activity. According to the article in Time magazine, Mario Rubinacci is a designer living in Naples who has decided to carry on his family's old tradition of tailoring. Rubinacci designs and tailors fashionable high-end clothing. He has just opened a new shop in London to add to all of his shops over the world. I also found out that there is a kind of resurgence in sewing activity today that doesn't really have any considerable gender boundaries. According to the Time article, Circle Back to Sewing, the traditional craft of sewing has been making a popular comeback. The first reason is that people are becoming inspired by television shows like Project Runway, and the second reason is because people are becoming tired of either not finding clothes that fit them right, or they are tired of the same old fashion they find in every store. Sewing your own clothing offers a way to create something unique. For my cross-gendered leisure activity project, I chose to learn how to sew. I chose this activity because I thought it looked interesting, and I also figured one day I might be able to use my sewing skills to mend or create if I so desired. I had my mother teach me how to sew because her first job when I was a child was hand-making collectible teddy bears, which she sold all around the world. The project I chose to undertake was the making of a body pillow. I thought this was a good project because it was relatively simple and to make and fun to do. This project is fairly far removed from the traditional ideals of men's leisurely activities. I feel that this is due to the Victorian ideal. According to Joan Perkin, this is the idea where women were expected to be modest and docile. The picture society painted for them was too hard for women to conform to. In this image, women were expected to pursue leisurely activities in the home that were considered womanly, like sewing. I believe that ever since this happened, sewing has been considered a women's hobby. Although today there are many exceptions. One example I found in an article in the Wall Street Journal entitled Idle Pastime, In Off Hours, Truckers Pick Up Sewing. I found that some truckers, while waiting for their next load to be picked up, have started sewing as a hobby. One trucker by the name of Dave White sews quilts on his off hours. I had never really participated in sewing before because I never thought it looked like a really fun activity. I remember being a kid in elementary school and being forced to do some type of sewing project, and I loathed it. Although after doing this project, I discovered an activity that was really fun and engaging. I think I found it engaging because I began to see sewing as an art form. According to the article Materiality and Collective Experience by Cynthia Fowler, many new contemporary artists are using sewing as a medium of expression in their art. I found I can relate this to the tradition of cultures gone by who create beautiful crafts from sewing. The activity itself was really very rewarding. This activity challenged me because it was simply something I had never done before. One action in particular was using the sewing machine. I found it difficult to control exactly where the needle was going, which requires you to guide the fabric. The overwhelming feeling I had while doing this project was the attention you had to pay to the detail of it, particularly the pinning of all the different kinds of pins in the fabric. This was the most tedious aspect of the entire project, but learning how to sew and learning all the different kinds of stitches you can make was very fascinating. I do admit that at times I was a little bored. This occurred mainly when pinning the fabric. Overall, the project took me almost 4 hours from start to finish. which wasn't nearly as much time as I thought a project like this was going to take. When I finished the project, I was greeted with an immense feeling of satisfaction that I created this body pillow. I was very proud of what I had done. An insight gained into the opposite gender's leisure is the aspect of feeling gratification from creating something. I had no idea that sewing was such a tedious activity. According to Joan Perkin, women throughout history have been employed in the tailoring craft. However, most of this work was done in sweatshops where they were paid little, if nothing, for working long and arduous hours while performing such a tedious task. I can't even imagine working long hours just focused on this activity. It would become very monotonous. One feeling that I enjoyed was the sense of creation. I was actually inspired after I finished the project. I think most men don't engage in sewing because they view it as a woman's hobby. However, according to the article Materiality and Collective, the men's crafts in Native American tribes were regarded as equal to the women's, and men frequently participated in sewing crafts. I know that based on my experience, I would participate in this activity again. I would do this activity again because I felt rewarded by the experience. I know it gave me a completely different perspective on leisure activities. I feel that sewing can be a positive experience for men and women. According to the article, circling back to sewing, men are more actively getting involved in sewing today. For example, mentioned in the article, Robert Blake took up sewing because he wanted to make apparel for his rock band. Thus, we can see the art of sewing being applied to modern activities. Overall, I had a fantastic experience, and I will definitely sew another project in the future.